What's up, YouTube? Let's talk about Dustin Porier. As you all know, he done went viral over the weekend for an altercation he had at an Atlanta airport in Georgia. And in the video, he's asked to disembark the plane, or they don't want to let him on the plane. And all his friends are on the plane and they're trying to get back home. Well, the checkpoint ladies were like, nah, you ain't getting on that plane. I guess they assumed that Dustin was a flight risk because he had too much to drink. And when you had too much to drink, we all been there. If you drink, you know, when you have too much to drink, you do and say stupid stuff. And Dustin is no exception. So the little ladies, they got on the phone. Yeah, security, crazy white boy over here. I don't know, he's drinking too much. You got to come remove him. All right, cool. Security gets over there. Bam! He's like, dang, I know that dude. That's Dustin Porier, MMA fighter. Cool. I'm going to let him know I know who he is. We're going to try to calm this out. Maybe he can catch another flight. Maybe I can grab an autograph or two. Hey, man, ain't you Dustin Porier? Man, who are you, man? And Dustin wants to fight dude. And dude's like, man, let me back up because I know what this dude's set of hands are. And Dustin threatens to fight the dude. And in the midst of it all, the two ladies who were working the desk, they just kind of, shuffled off to the back by the desk and they just kind of observing what's going on. Well, Dustin is angry. He's mad. He calls them bees. He calls the security officer, basically calls him out and says, we're going to get in a fist fight. Security officer realizes, nah, I'm not fighting you because I know I can't win that fight. So he puts distance between himself and Dustin continues to exacerbate the situation while the security guard does everything he can to de-escalate the situation. Well, Dustin being, a fighter that he is, he's ready to get down and get with it. So he tells the security guard, who is now calling for the police to get on the scene, he says, you better call a whole bunch because it's going to get down. And so Dustin is clearly making threats and references to threats to fight. And then he drops the N-word. And that's what has a lot of people upset, that he actually dropped the N-word. I personally have no problem with him dropping the N-word. I get it. He's from Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana. If you've been from Louisiana for a long time, people in Louisiana tend to drop the N-word, and they tend to drop it quite often because they grew up dropping the N-word. And so that brings us to one of our bigger problems with the Dustin Porier video, and that's that Dustin dropped the N-word. And some people are going to overreact behind the N-word, like, oh my gosh, he dropped the N-word. Like, of all the things he could have done, he dropped the N-word. And if you drop that word, that's the worst possible thing that you can do. I mean, literally, you can go and fill in the blank. I gotta watch what I say here because I can get in trouble too. You drop the N-word, that's the worst thing you can do. Oh man. Comes find out, most people don't care that he dropped the N-word. Why? Because the context in which Dustin dropped the N-word wasn't the context that most people would assume or try to twist this thing out to be that it really ain't. All right, there's this thing where they say if you drop the N-word with the A sound at the end, it ain't that bad. In fact, if you white and you grew up around black folk, and specifically if you're from Louisiana, you probably grew up around black folks saying that word, But if you use the ER at the end, then it's a big issue. And they were saying that, hey, look, Dustin kind of dropped it with the A sound at the end. Not And most people are cool with it. Most people, a lot of people. But some people are going to make a big deal out of nothing. Dustin is not a racist. He didn't intend that to be a racist remark, nor a racist slur. He was just drunk and heated. In fact, in my opinion, considering that Dustin was drunk, the video goes to show you that he definitely wasn't a racist, because when you're drunk, you tend to let your true colors show. He didn't say nothing racist. Now, he did some things that showed his true colors. And one is that he can't control his emotions, especially when he's drinking. And I'm a fan of Dustin's. I think he's a cool dude. He's from Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana. I represent for my rounds. And so I'm on Dustin's side. I'm with him. But that being said, just like I would tell any of my friends who I come up with, if the alcohol is controlling you, you got to stop the alcohol. And that's where Dustin's biggest problem is. And I'm sure at this point, now that he was able to sober up and cooler heads are prevailing. I'm sure he's probably having a discussion with his family and his confidants in his life. And they're probably saying, look, Dustin, this was a bad situation that could have been much, much, much worse. Thank God that security officer and them ladies in that airport and the police officers who showed up all were legitimately cool, calm, and collected. The only one who wasn't cool, calm, and collected was the professional MMA fighter, UFC fighter, because he had too much to drink, man, that alcohol. I don't mess with no alcohol. One, I have Asian flush, and it's a disease or a rare disorder that a lot of Asians, or more likely than anybody else, Asians tend to have. As you all know, if you watch The Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube, where you should definitely drop a like, subscribe, comment, help this channel go to the next level. I am Japanese. And so, of course, I have a disorder called Asian flush. So I can't handle alcohol, so I do not drink alcohol. But Dustin is like most people. He likes to drink alcohol. Drinking, to me, I always thought alcohol, airplane, don't go. But hey, they got to make their money. That's what they do. They got to keep the people calm. Some people can't do nothing unless they drink. They can't even focus unless they drink. So they got to have that alcohol. Well, he had that alcohol. And in all reality, the way he responded to the situation was proof that the ladies made a good, correct judgment of saying, look, you can't get on this airplane. Or whoever it was that maybe he made it on the airplane. I don't know the full story. We're going to find out more, I'm sure, in the days to come. They made the correct decision to say, hey, look, you can't fly on this plane. You had too much to drink. We don't like the way you're acting. And when the officer shows up and calls him by his name, Dustin, oh, you Dustin Porier? And he gets upset, you know. Maybe he didn't want nobody calling his name. I get it. He had too much to drink. And that's when he tells the dude, I'm going to fight you. Well, the dude, the security officer, he steps back and he got his pistol and he don't want nothing to do with nothing. And he's wise. He's de-escalating. And I think that's part of training too. Just like Dustin trains with fighting and fighting techniques, he knows about distance. Well, this security officer is trained as well. So he knows to separate himself from distance from a physical threat. So he does a good thing, pulls out his taser and aims his taser. And Dustin's kind of like, you know, bucked up and ready to go. And he drops the N-word. Here's the thing, y'all. I grew up in Louisiana. I went to public schools on the West Bank of Louisiana. And if you know, you know. Louisiana has one of the biggest black populations in the United States of America. If it's not number one, it's in the top 3 all the time, every time. And if you're white and you grew up in Louisiana, chances are you grew up around a lot of black folks. That was your friends. That's who you hung out with. These people are family, right? So if you grew up with a certain segment of people, then y'all, there was no differentiating on the way y'all talked. And so a lot of white people grew up using the N-word, and especially in southern Louisiana. And I grew up using the N-word. My friends grew up using the N-word. When I hung out with my black friends, which I had a lot growing up, I used the N-word. I used the N-word throughout public school and throughout prison. It wasn't until I was close to 30 years old before I slowly voided using the N-word from my vocabulary. I don't use the N-word. I don't drop F-bombs. I do my best. If you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you can go back. There is little to no cursing in my videos because I try to talk without using derogatory language. And it ain't nothing about me not using the N-word because I've used it before. I used it around my black friends. I've used it growing up. I used it in prison. And if I'm being honest, I had, you know, when I was in prison, I had black dudes call me a punk A white boy and using that derogatorily towards me. And I, in response, called them a punk A N-word. And so there it was. What we going to do about it? And that's how it is in prison, right? But when I got out of prison, I realized the way I used to talk wasn't going to help propel me to better opportunities in life. So I changed the way I talk. And I like to read a lot. So I read a lot of books. So I changed my vocabulary. And when I changed my vocabulary, I realized I had to get rid of that word. And so I got rid of it. I don't use that word. I do my best not to use curse words in derogatory terms. I do my best. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying nothing's going to come out. But I don't speak like that. Dustin was speaking out of being inebriated, and he said the N-word, but he didn't do it in a racist way. So I don't think there's much to read into the point that he used the N-word. Do I think he should clean his language up, sure, but he ain't the only one. There's a whole slew of people on social media that needs to clean up the way their language is used, including some of the most influential people on YouTube speak with filthy mouths. Okay, so we ain't gonna make no big deal that Justin used the dreaded N-word, but I think there's a bigger problem here, and it's his alcoholism. He was drinking alcohol, and I'm sure, and this is the thing, looking back at it, he needs to be very grateful that security officer kept his cool head and did not panic even after being called the N-word. And so did those two ladies. From what I can tell, them ladies are black ladies. And they didn't panic neither. They kept their cool. They moved out the way and let the security officer handle his business. And speaking of that, I recently on my channel had to go back and forth with somebody literally this weekend this happened with Dustin, and somebody was accusing me of trying to be black. The last thing in the world that I'm trying to do is be anything other than what I am. I'm actually a proponent against anybody trying to be anything other than what they actually are. I can't control my ethnicity. I can't control my sex. These are things I have no control over. It is what it is, and I am what I am. The Lord chose me to be a French Japanese male, and that's what I am. I can't help that my dialect and my language and the vernacular that I use is representative of the environment that I grew up in, and maybe it was around a lot of black folks. So I might have some tendencies to pronounce words in ways that people assume to be black, but I ain't trying to be black. I'm almost 50 years old, y'all. Do you think I have time to pretend to be anything other than what I am? The Bible says I am fearfully and wonderfully made in the Lord's image, and so are you. I ain't trying to be nothing other than what God created me to be. Only a stupid fool accuses me of trying to be black. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. And anybody who knows me, blacks and whites, would stand on that mountain and say, nah, you got the wrong one. Because I ain't trying to be nothing other than what I am. And so Dustin, obviously, from South Louisiana, grew up around black folks. And he dropped that word. Them ladies kept calm. They were respectful. Even the police officers that came to the scene, if that security officer and them two ladies who were in the airport when he dropped the N-word and when he was getting a little belligerent, if they would have exacerbated and over-exaggerated the situation, it could have got much worse for Dustin. I believe the good Lord was with Dustin when this happened. Said, look, son, I ain't going to let this happen to you. I'm going to make sure you protected. And because he could have got bad, y'all. Can you imagine if he would have put his hands on them police officers? What could have happened? It could have. Dustin's tough, and he could beat any one of them people in a fist fight. He can't beat no slug. Boom, boom. Dustin can't beat no lead. And so I'm glad that security officer put distance between themselves. I'm glad them two ladies kept themselves calm and collected. And because they could have exaggerated. How often you watch videos on the news, on YouTube, that become viral is because some stupid fool, some woman or some women couldn't keep their composure, and they exacerbated the whole situation and made it much, 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 much worse than it ever had to be. These ladies, I give them respect, and especially the security officer, I give respect. So by the time the police get there, Dustin is also thinking a little bit more clearly. He's probably realizing, oh man, what am I about to do and what am I doing? And he tells them, look, put the cuffs on me, arrest me. And he has the decency to lift up his fist and give his fist with the cuffs on, tell that security officer, you dealt with this the right way. And that security officer wasn't a perpetual victim who was offended and, you know, I ain't shaking your hand. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You effing this white boy, this, that, and the other. You punk, you think you so tough. Now you got the cuffs on. He didn't do none of that. He dapped Dustin up because he was just doing his job, and he did his job well. That security officer deserves a raise, and Dustin should send that security officer something awesome for Christmas, in my opinion, because that security officer very well kept Dustin's life intact. And not just his physical life, but his whole future. That security officer, in all likelihood, kept Dustin from doing something that was going to change his life. This changes things, but he can come back from this. You could shake back from this. From what I understand, he already came out and gave a remark and said that I regret what I did. I have a problem with alcoholism. I need to seek professional help. That's the right response. That's what he should say. But it could have got much, much worse because them cops could have done something dirty, but them cops were cool too. You know, they put the cuffs on, they brought him to jail, and now everybody's talking about Dustin Porier. Now, hey, listen, the pin in the shank, like I said, is the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube. And that's my round. Y'all call them homeboys. In Louisiana, we call them rounds. Dustin is my round. He's from round the way. So I'm going to stand up for him. You know, just like people from New York stand up with New York, California with California, whatever. Louisiana going to stand up for Louisiana. And I don't know him, but from everything I see, he seems like a decent dude. He got a family. He's a family man. He's just making a living for himself and a name for himself. And things just went sideways. He confessed and admitted to it. Now, some people going to make fun of him. And here's the thing, too. A lot of people were online talking inside their head like this. Oh, if that was me, I would have did this. There's a bunch of people on social media, no shorts. If Justin would have did that to me, man, he would have caught an uppercut. All right, you was going to give this man an uppercut. This man is in the top 1% of the people in the world who know how to fist fight and fight in general and trained martial arts. And you was going to uppercut him? You're a fool. That's the stupidest thing. Learn from the security guard. I wrote a little file card, and one thing I wrote on said, only a fool and an overly emotional man would have attempted to fight Dustin Porier, and I've been both. I got in a fight with a guy who's in black belt in karate, and the only reason I survived is I hit him in the face with an object and in the head. And if I wouldn't, I snuck attack him. If I would have tried to come at him straight, he would have took me out. And that was when I was in juvenile detention. I did that. And then when I was an adult, I got in a couple fights with Golden Glove boxers. One of them, a couple times I hit him with weapons. I never fought him straightforward because I never would have won. I'm not stupid enough to fight a professional fighter. And I know I can't fight in a fair match. I need to even it out. And it ain't worth it because I got in a fight with a Golden Glove boxer in prison. And this dude wasn't even worried about me. It was my own self-esteem. It wasn't that dude's. Thank God that I was spared because dude could have destroyed me. And I hit him. Dude smiled at me when I hit him, like, what you hitting me for? Then he told me, man, he said, I'm going to smash you, white. First words he told me when I punched him, he said, man, I can't believe I let you hit me, white boy. And I looked at him, he smiled. He said, man, I'm a K blank LLU. And I'm like, dang. He balled his fist up and I'm punching him and he's just smiling. I ain't doing nothing. By that time, the officers jumped on us and broke us up. I was depressed. He was a Golden Glove boxer. He was one of the best boxers in prison. And I had no business doing what I did. And it was on me. See, I can look back in life and say when I did something stupid, that dude didn't care about me. Actually, I ran into him later in life and I was blessed again that he didn't smash me. It could have happened, but I got transferred out the pod before the dude woke up on the wrong side of the bed and took it out on me. But to sit here and say that what you was going to do, Dustin, that would have been dumb, man. Y'all, we got to think. Pay attention to smart people like the security officer. That dude got wisdom, man. That dude ain't no less of a man than Dustin. He just got wisdom. He knows his limits. And what he did was prevent a possible casualty in that situation. So there's a lot to learn from this. And, you know, it's one thing to recognize that de-escalation is a good thing. Learning how to use your language correctly is a good thing. I tried the English language and the languages of the world are vast. I try my best not to use too many derogatory terms or curse words because the English language is so big. There are words that I haven't even heard or don't even know exist. So why would I make myself more simple-minded and speak like a fool? Dustin has to correct the drinking. And if he corrects the drinking, other areas of his life will get better. And that's the biggest thing the takeaway from this video, man. Drinking alcohol can destroy you in all kind of ways. And in fact, most of the people I know who have been destroyed from achieving their goals in life and reaching their best potential and reaching their destinies, it's because of alcoholism, narcotics, tendencies that they couldn't break. These things will destroy us. And none of us are perfect, But it's obvious that Dustin needs to give up the alcohol. And I'm hoping and praying that he does. He's a smart man. And I believe before it's all said and done, Dustin will get himself in order. There's some funny stuff from him. We can laugh. You know, I saw was a tweet or X post or something where Conor McGregor was poking fun at him or saying stuff about him. Well, look, Conor McGregor can fight. So I guess Conor McGregor can say what some of y'all are saying that y'all shouldn't be saying. You know, you can't fight, man. Don't be talking crazy to Dustin like you can fight. Conor McGregor can talk crazy, like I said, because he can fight. But if you're going to talk crazy to an MMA fighter, you better know who you are. You better be wise. You saw how them police officers handled it, so recognize that. That's a lot to learn from that. And man, and respect to them women, because if there was one thing about this video that I thought about that would set me off, and I didn't care if it was Dustin or General Child's Chicken or the president of the United States or the baddest dude in prison. When you messing with them women and calling them B words, man, you don't know whose mama's, that is. And that's why you got to be careful too, man. Because, one thing, man, we all know, man, you mess with somebody's mama and they're willing to go to the next level behind that. So you got to be careful. And I'm sure Dustin understands that he has family, and there's family members he don't want nobody talking to. That's a line you don't really want crossed. So that's what that alcohol done. Because if that's somebody's mama, man, they can come back a right way and say, man, you talking about my mama, man. I'm going to do you something real dirty. And a dude can do you something dirty. And that's when fighting goes out the window. So you got to be careful how you talk to people. And alcohol will make you talk crazy to people. So you got to get yourself and keep your composure, man. But share in the comments, what do y'all think? Do you think Dustin dropping the N-words was racist? Or do you think he was just acting on pure inebriation and emotions and just said something stupid? That's just the way he always talked because he grew up in Louisiana. And what about the state where you from? Did you grow up, and if you black, did you grow up around white folks who use the N-word? I know black folks who will call the N-word hard, ER word, in a racist manner. But I also know a lot of white people who hung out with black people who just said the word the same way black folks would say the word in regular conversation, chip-chopping it up and hanging out. And that's just the way it is, man. I know this is a controversial topic, and I knew I had to cover it on the channel, and we had to discuss it. And I wanted to be clear and honest. I'm from Louisiana, and I would say that there's a common theme you see a lot when it comes to the N-word. People always say, man, them dudes are from Louisiana or they from the South. Specifically in Louisiana, in the South, probably Mississippi, Florida, all that area, Alabama. You're going to hear more white folks who grew up with black folks who use that word. And in the New Orleans area, I've been hearing it my whole life from white folks around black folks, even in prison. And it's just a different thing. Anyway, man, like, subscribe, comment, share your thoughts. I know it's controversial. What do you think? Do you think Dustin's going to get the help he needs? And should he quit drinking? Let's get it.